There are 168 hours in a week. We go to church for 1 hour. What about the other 167?
Cue this podcast. We're here to bring the church to you the rest of the week. I'm David Vogel, the Director of Communication here at Central Community Church.
I'm Corey Brodel, the Director of Community. We've been to the 1 hour in church. Now welcome to the other 167.
Today we have Cara Rapp. We are so glad that you're here. And we were talking a little bit before we started. Today is your birthday. So we got you a podcast for your birthday.
I'm sure she wants to return her gift already.
Yeah, where's the receipt?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, well, Cara, thanks for being here. And today we're going to be talking about fostering, maybe a little bit of adoption. So let's start and just tell us about your family. How many kids you have, how many you have adopted so far.
Okay, well, we are the Rapp family. I joke right now, we have a toddler that we're getting ready to adopt, hopefully in the next few months. And we have our amazing son, Michael, who is in kindergarten, and we did adopt him as well. And then we have Lexi, who is a 5th grader, and Allie, who is a 6th grader, and Brady is our freshman. And we just said yes to fostering a newborn. Wow. So yeah, newborn, toddler, and teenager, and junior high girls. Sounds like a good mix,
Lots
right?
of free time.
Do you think your kids, your older kids, are going to be watching this podcast, or will they be like, oh, Mom?
I think a few will. The others will be too embarrassed to watch me. So,
Well, let's start. You have been fostering for 4 years.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you got into it and just go from there? Kind of just start where you started with fostering, and we'll see where this goes.
okay. Yes. Well, God is funny because I never felt called to be a teacher or to really even invest in children. And I know that sounds really bad, but God is he just did. He introduced me to a great friend who I love so much. And my family always saw her loving on these children that would come in her home. And it was a whole family for them. I mean, their whole family got behind it. And I just did some women ministry here at Central, and I don't even remember what Bible study we were doing, but God just really spoke to me during that time of just simplifying my life and saying yes to fewer things and stop doing some things to free up time. And I was like, God, no, I'd like to be busy. Like, this is so hard. And little did I know, God was starting to speak to me about foster care and us opening up our home to help children like my great friend Casey. And my husband, I will say, and this is kind of what I hear from a lot of women, he wasn't feeling the calling like I was. And my daughters and I prayed for him of a morning going to school, and God slowly changed his heart, and that was so awesome to see. So we started doing the foster care classes, but we had a little boy that was 4 years old that was going up for adoption. And so we kind of did come into foster care thinking adoption was the way that we wanted to go with this, but it ended up changing really, and we've been a really heavily focused more foster care family with a little bit of adoption to kind of spread out along the way. So,
And in the 4 years, how many kids have you fostered?
okay, so we have had several. I don't know the exact number. There's several different ways that you can foster. There's what's called police protective custody, where children, DCF will just need a home just short term, maybe 2 to 3 days while they are talking to the family unit to see if the kids are safe to be going back into that setting. And since we have lots of personalities in our home, we have decided to do a lot of police protective services through Wichita Children's Home, where we just get to love on a child, for 2 to 3 days. And then they end up going maybe into foster care. They try really hard to find them a kinship placement, which means with family, or they go back to their parents. And so we have had a lot of children because we do a lot of short term.
Okay.
But then there's some that we're like, you know what? Their personality fits in really well with our children. So we can, if they go into foster care, then we can say, yeah, we're happy to help, do them long-term at our home with our family. So
That's really cool. And I think so when you have a kid, and especially long term, what's the interaction with them like? What do you do? How do you make them feel at home and those sorts of things?
I love that question. I didn't even think of something before, but what I love to do is I'll go into some other foster families' homes, and I see their biological children have their pictures up on the mantle. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I have really tried to do hard is immediately get a picture of them up in our home. Because
that's really cool.
When they are dropped off at your home, you're a total stranger. They have to leave all of their clothes. They have to leave all of their toys behind. And they're just dropped off at this total stranger's house. And they're totally trusting their lives with you.
Wow.
And even if their parents were abusive, they still have that strong connection and devotion. And they don't want to be in that position. And a lot of kids get ripped out of their schools that, they lost their teacher, a lot of their safety net. And so just really going on that level of, I'm going to tell you everything that I know, and I'm not going to keep secrets from you, and really trying to build that trust, protecting them and putting it in a way that keeps them safe. But, and then always on, if we do have a long-term child, that first visit with their parents, as you can imagine, is a really emotional thing. Yeah. And just taking a picture of their whole family together and putting that while they're in their visit, I like to just rush over to Walgreens and put that in a frame. And so I give it to the parents so they can have that, and putting that in the child's room so they have, their family. I'm not here to try to break up your family. I'm here to just see you through this hard time. Yeah. So those are kind of, I guess, a couple ways that I try. But
I love it because you're kind of bringing them. I mean, you're bringing them into your family, but you're also like almost emotionally and relationally like, here's your picture with all our other kids. Yes. I think that brings a level of familiarness and care that I think would go a long way when you're in a brand new place with nobody you know.
Just building up that trust from the very get-go. I love to take my kids to meet the biological parents, at the very get-go, because I do have a teenage son. I do have older girls, and it's just really important for my son to be, shaking their hands and making them feel comfortable, and, my husband too. And so it's kind of interesting how it's like blending two families together for a bit.
So with fostering, I've never looked into it or anything. You're allowed to have that relationship with the biological family. So you guys have that back and forth, or does it depend on what level you're fostering?
So yes, I would say that lean heavily on the caseworkers. They know the cases very well. I tend to be a little bit too open. Sometimes Brian has to rein me in. But I would say that there's been a couple cases that I have not felt safe in having that relationship, but that is few and far between. I have met, wonderful people from biological families. Some of these kids go into grandparents, and they come over to my house. I'll help them babysit. They send me, notes. And so it's just kind of a really heavily lay on the workers to how they'll guide you and what they say. But yeah, definitely meeting them at, when you're dropping off a child and taking care of a picture, that's not hard. But I would say probably 80% of the parents I've worked with, I do get on Facebook Messenger. I don't friend them on Facebook. Facebook Messenger makes it just a really easy way to exchange phone numbers. But it makes it really easy to just take this picture of your child maybe crawling for the first time that they're missing out, which they're sad, but getting it on video and sending it because, and just doing those different milestone pictures is really important to build that trust with the parents.
Yeah. Now we were kind of talking before this, you were talking about ways that people can support. Like you're like, Corey, I don't really want to talk about this is how you foster, but you're like, let's talk about how we can support those in that foster. And I loved that. Can you share with us and the audience how we can support those that maybe we know or maybe we don't even know in their calling and fostering?
Yes, that was just what was kind of heavily put on my heart is not everyone is called to foster. Yeah. And that is okay. Because I think a lot of people feel guilty that they're not doing it. And, we're all called to do different things. Like you were saying, we're not going to Africa and building wells, or
Right. Not called to that, but we can support those who are.
Yes. Right. Amen to that. And so God just provided me this huge village this last weekend to focus on my high school son and his dance. There's just so many different things that you can do for foster families, whether it's, they have a new foster child. Maybe I should donate some of my kids' shoes, find out what size of shoes or, clothes they're in. I've had so many people do that when I've gotten a new foster child. They've gone shopping and drop off that stuff. And that means the world to me. Or when they get a newborn, you don't have to do a big old elaborate baby shower, but a simple meal, the mom's probably tired. The foster mom's tired. I'm going to go just take over a meal. My parents have really stepped up to be grandkids or grandparents to all of these kids that needed a grandparent.
Yeah.
And I'm so forever thankful. And so if you're someone that just wants to be a grandparent, find a foster child, find a foster family that needs a grandparent just to, love on them and give them hugs. And, so aunts and uncles are needed to, to extra love. And I would say that they love on my biological children as much as the adoptees, as much as the fosters. It's been awesome to see other families and how they've benefited by us opening up our home, so I don't know. Is that good? Okay. Are those enough examples? Because I could go on and on and on. So
we can all prepare meals, or I can do frozen meals. I can go to the store.
I can bring a meal.
Right. Lasagna, Stouffer's lasagna,
Yes.
frozen just to throw in. It's great.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be homemade.
Yeah. Well, Cara, is there anything else that you just want to share? You feel like you just, God's put on your heart, or anything else that you feel like we're missing about fostering?
Yeah, I just want to say that this is all about the children. It's all about God's children, and they're not our children. We were briefly talking just about a lot of people just say, Cara, I could never do this. I could never love on a child and then let them go. And that is the number one thing that I hear. And God just gave it to me one day. These are my children. These are not your children.
Yeah.
Your biological children are not your children. All of these children that I'm going to entrust you with, I want you to show them my love. And that's truly what it has to be about, is not what will I get in return, but just showing them a little bit of Jesus and opening up our hearts to do it, because it might be the only one shot they got, Wow. So that's, I guess, what the number one thing God called me to say. So
that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Cara,
Yes,
for being
thank you
here.
for having
We appreciate
me.
you sharing your heart with us.
Yes,
and
thank you.
I love following you on Facebook and seeing all your little cute pictures that you put of your kids and your family.
I try to be real.
Love it.
It's not a perfect home environment by any means. Put it all out there. So
I love it. Well, thanks for being
yeah,
here.
Thanks,
thank you for
Cara.
having me.
Thanks for listening to 167. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening from.
And to keep up with everything at Central Community Church, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to watch us record this podcast live, find us on YouTube.
We think the 167 hours between church services are so important, and we hope you'll share this episode with your friends. Join us next week.